and welcome to the East Anglia News Review with me, Shannon Rankin, and the newspaper specialist, Louise James. Thank you for joining us. Where are we starting today then, Louise?
Well, Shannon, we're starting with the Castle County Press because we are suddenly or completely riveted by this. Let's start with the front page. The headline, Community Fights for Light. It's a story close to many of the villagers' hearts. This is very much typical of a local newspaper as it develops the conventions of a story shaped by the issues of the community that will be the target audience of the newspaper. The newspaper includes little use of puns and sensational language, which also develops the typical conventions of a local newspaper. The news is completely soft news in a language which is easy to understand for the target audience. Okay, as we move swiftly on to the second page. The second page, the newspaper has taken a much more positive approach and celebrating the atmosphere of the village, and Carnival comes to town. This develops the conventions of a local newspaper as they often reflect upon past events that have brought the village closer and together and united them as one. Overall, the newspaper does not really challenge the conventions of a local newspaper and reflects the idea that are in many other local newspapers. I see you have your own newspaper. How do you think this develops and challenges the conventions, Shannon?
Well, Louise, in fact, I can say that the Sybil Hedingham Echo in some ways challenges the typical conventions of a local newspaper with a front page headline of Boy Racer Chaos.
Boy Racer Chaos.
The story suggests a negative perspective of the young males in the local area who are assumed to drive about in these highly modified vehicles. This immediately gives an image of a negativity in the village of Sybil Hedingham, which is usually thought of as a friendly, welcoming community. Typical local newspapers would not write such stories as your previous newspaper demonstrates. The Sybil Hedingham Echo has taken a much more hard news approach, although this gives the target audience something more exciting and dramatic to read about. My point being that by challenging the typical conventions of a local newspaper could possibly result in gaining more of an interested audience. As we move on to the second page, the newspaper suggests a more positive view of the village by discussing the new prospects for the community.
Brendel regeneration.
This very much so develops the typical conventions of a local newspaper as it relates to the target audience, giving them an update of the new build. Thank you for your time, Louise. We will now report to Lewis Smith for the weather report.
Thanks.